Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, your statistics and sports podcast. I am your host, Joshua Tracy, and I'm riding solo today in a rare turn of events. We've done this a few times before, you and I. Corwin is absent from recording because, believe it or not, we have lives outside of this, and his just got in the way today. Is what it is, man. We're all people. And as a result of not having my good friend and confidant here, I'll be riding solo on this, and it'll probably be a little bit shorter. So, if that makes you mad, suck a dick. So, since Corwin's not here, not going to talk about the championship games quite yet. There's still time because we now have the bye week between the championship games in the NFL and the Super Bowl. That gives us plenty of time to get back together Sunday and recap the championship games and look forward towards the two teams that made the Super Bowl and, do matchups and predictions and whatnot. But, yeah, so look out for that on Monday's episode, I guess. In the meantime, news that has been going down, the MLB Hall of Fame voting came out yesterday, the official announcement, and no one made it. It was a blanking. Nobody made the Hall of Fame this year. And that is not, I guess, unexpected, but still interesting. So let's look at some trends from last year to this year. So first, let's look at the people who dropped off the ballot. Of our first year people, the only people to remain on the ballot are Mark Buehrle, who we did an episode about. He got 11% of the vote. Torrey Hunter got 9.5% of the vote, and Tim Hudson got 5.2%. So we just snuck in there. You need at least 5% to stay each year. So falling off the ballot this year, Aramis Ramirez, who was on 1% of ballots, it's 4 ballots overall. LaTroy Hawkins, who got 0.5% of the vote, 2 ballots overall. And Barry Zito, who got 0.2% of the ballots. One single man voted for Barry Zito. I would not be surprised if it was Barry Zito. But that means that AJ Burnett, Shane Victorino, Dan Herron, Michael Cudyer, and Nick Swisher all did not meet the minimum required threshold to remain on the ballot, which means that their time on the traditional means of making the MLB Hall of Fame are run through. As has been discussed, there's always the what do they call it? The committee of fucking elders that gets together and looks at players who have fallen off the ballot in previous years and whether they are worthy of a revisiting in terms of their resume qualifying them. It's doubtful any of these guys are going to make it, but, even with that means, but fucking, oh well, is what it is. So let's look at the people who have been on in years past and how they changed from last year. So we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. Bobby Abreu this year finished with 8.7% of the ballots. It's 35 ballots overall. Bobby Abreu last year finished at 5.5% of the ballots, so he saw a few more people going the Bobby Abreu route. He got 13 more votes this year. It is not a promising trend for him to ultimately make the Hall of Fame, but hey, he's on for another year, and with how much controversy is probably going to be surrounding the next batch of ballots, which I guess we can get into, because it'll be a doozy. Hey, maybe he stands a chance, but it's only a 1-year difference, but rate-wise, it's not looking great. Andy Pettit's third year on the ballot, he got 13.7% of people to vote for him. Last year, he got 11.3%. So again, an increase, not a lot. Sammy Sosa this year was on 17% of ballots. It's his 9th year in of eligibility. Last year, he was on 13.9% of ballots. So another minor increase, and it does not bode well. if Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens took large steps forward, and I'm talking like 20 percentage point step forward, maybe we'd see momentum for Sammy Sosa in his final year of eligibility next year, but that looks exceedingly unlikely with this really small advancement. As it stands right now, he would need to get an additional fucking 58 percentage points worth of ballots. That's an additional let's see, he's at 68. He's on 68 ballots right now, and I think you need raw ballot wise. I think you need like 291, something like that. So he would need another 223 ballots, which is almost triple or almost quadruple what he has right now. So we need a 300% increase. It's just not going to happen. So this is likely the end of the Sammy Sosa run, but we'll see how things shake out next year. Who knows? Maybe the conversation changes. Manny Ramirez is on 28.2% of ballots this go around. Last time he was on 28.2% of ballots. He got 112 votes last time. He got 113 votes this time. That is zero movement. He might stand a better chance than Sosa because this is only Manny Ramirez's 5th year on the ballot, but to be seen. Jeff Kent, 8th year on the ballot, 32.4% of the votes. Last year, Jeff Kent got 27.5, so moved up 7 entire percentage points. I don't know. I don't know how Jeff Kent's future fares. We talked about a lot of these top 10 percentage vote getters and how they look going forward. I don't think we thought Jeff Kent was going to get very far. He's got a couple years left to show it. It's a pretty decent jump. It's not enough for him to get that same amount each time, but maybe he's turning some heads. Again, Larry Walker got in on his 10th year. We'll see what fucking happens. Andrew Jones got 33.9% of the ballot this year. Last year, Andrew Jones got 19.4% of the ballot. So if you were listening earlier when I said Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens need like a 20 percentage jump, there it is. It happens. It's not silly. Andrew Jones getting a lot more recognition this time around. He is certainly a Hall of Famer by play, but we'll get into a renewed conversation around the quality of folk heading to the Hall of Fame and how that should be weighed going forward. Anywho, Gary Sheffield, his 7th year on the ballot, 40.6% of the vote. Last time around, 30.5%, so that's a 10 percentage point jump. However, this is Gary Sheffield's 7th year on the ballot, so I don't know. If he gets 3 more of those, he'd still be short of making the Hall of Fame. He's sitting at 70%. He needs 75%, but maybe that 10-point jump is fortuitous. Who the fuck knows? Todd Helton, 3rd year, 44.9%. Todd Helton last year, 29.2%. It's a nice 15 percentage point jump. Todd Helton only in his 3rd year. So he's certainly gaining momentum on the pace that one would need to make the Hall of Fame. We'll keep an eye out for that future years. Billy Wagner, his 6th year on, 46.4%. Billy Wagner last time around, 31.7%. So also a 15-point jump. Maybe people vote for them synonymously, simultaneously. Fuck you. That's the word I was looking for. Omar Vizquel, 49.1% of the votes this time around. Omar last time, 52.6%. Omar's the first guy we have that went down. Now, there was the story that broke right around the beginning of Hall of Fame voting that Omar Vizquel had a domestic abuse and domestic violence. Jesus Christ, sorry folks. I don't know what a charge of domestic violence against him, or an accusation anyway, which I'm suspecting severely affected his vote getting, rightfully so. Again, more on that as we loop to the end of this conversation, but he was on a pretty strong storming path to get to the Hall based on his previous year's growth. And like I said, in 2020, he got a 52.6% of the vote, and in 2019, he ended up getting, where are you, Omar, 2019? 42.8%. So he had made a 10-point jump from his 2nd year to his 3rd year. And his 1st year, Omar got 37%. So he was doing well. This will probably spell the end of his likely ability to make the Hall of Fame, just based on the direction the conversations are heading. But again, we shall see. Scott Rowland, 52.9% of the ballot this time around. Scott Rowland last time, 35.3. It's a 17 percentage point jump. It's stupid. It's taking this long. If there was anybody that should have made the Hall of Fame, basically for sure, since there's no conversations around him painting any negative light, I would have to imagine it should have been Scott Rowland's year. 70.1 WAR, as we've talked about before. But fuck us, I guess, right? The average everyday baseball fan, fuck us. All right, that brings us to the top three guys, all ninth-year eligibility dudes. Scott Rowland, by the way, just to look back, will likely make the Hall of Fame. Only his fourth year. He only needs 23 additional percentage points worth of votes to get in. He's in a very good place to do so. Roger Clemens, last time around, this year, got 61.6% of the ballot. Roger Clemens last time, 61. So we got 242 total votes last year. 247 votes this year, so 5 additional votes. It just doesn't seem like it's going to be enough. Again, unless something startling happens, which ninth year on the ballot, I just don't see happening. The only person I could think of that had such a similar jump, maybe Larry Walker. Yeah, Larry Walker, his ninth year, he got 54% of the ballot, and then made the Hall of Fame the next year, getting 76.6% of the ballot. So there's a 22% jump in his last year of eligibility. So could it happen for Bonds and Clemens? Sure. Is it likely? No. Speaking of Bonds, 61.8% of the ballots this year. Bonds last year, 60.7%. Coming in with 241 total ballots. So what's funny about it is that last year, 2020, Clemens, 242 ballots, Bonds, 241. So there's one fucking guy who voted for Clemens and not Bonds, which is like, how do you do that? They both have over 100 WAR. The only thing you have against them in an on-the-field sense, which again, stay tuned, is the PED usage, which they're both equals in, so I don't understand where that separation is. This year, Bonds, 248 ballots, Clemens, 247, which means that fucking 7 additional people voted for Bonds, and then only 6 people were like, yeah, I'll throw Clemens a bone here too. And, or 5 people, yeah. Which is like, where, why, who, how do you get there? I don't know. That doesn't matter. And finally, our favorite, the worst person that I think we'll ever see on this ballot, Curt Schilling, luckily, falling short in his, strongest bid thus far. He got 71.1% of the vote. Last year, he got 70% of the vote, but many people apparently tried to contact the MLB Hall of Fame voting commission to get them to alter their ballots to take Schilling off the ballot after he supported the insurrection on January 6th, which they got told that they could not. So there's a very strong chance that if he were to be on the ballot next year, which apparently Curt Schilling is looking to rescind his own eligibility for the ballot, so there's like a good chance that won't even end up happening, that he wouldn't fucking get in anyway. So he's being a fucking whiny little bitch and doesn't want to have to deal with the fact that no one fucking likes him, or at least not enough people like him. So that's where we stand. So there's a lot to address with the top of this ballot, and it's been a conversation for a while now that I think the sports community has been slowly getting better at. Certainly not at the pace at which they need to, which was, like 60 years ago, but whatever. Getting better at understanding quote-unquote off-the-field implications are still fucking serious. Like, I don't care that Bonds and Clemens did steroids. I think I think a lot of people in my generation, I don't know, Corbin doesn't care. I think a lot of people in my generation don't give a shit. Because who cares? It's a game. And they were really good at it. And that shouldn't matter. However, it's been made more of a talking point, the fact that both these guys also have domestic violence accusations against them. And that's a line. Cheating, corking your bat, using like stickum or pine tar or whatever, man, fucking half the league does that shit anyway. You know, that's not a big deal. And the fact of the matter is that so many people do it that the fact that you can still the fact that you're good almost doesn't matter if you're doing it or not, because so much, like, it's not like everyone who does it is universally going to be a Hall of Famer. It's just not how it works. So that shit doesn't factor in. Not everyone beats people up. Not everyone abuses their girlfriend, their partners, their significant others, whatever. And the MLB is failing in this respect in a very similar way into how they failed with steroids, which is, if you leave it up to the writers to have to make moral decisions, you are going to get a wild swath of terrible moral positions based on who the voting body or the writing body of the sport is. And the fact that we're talking about the sports community, which overwhelmingly has been hostile to women for decades. And we're at a point, societally, I hope, where we're giving more room for these things to be conversations in regards to how are we going to treat the history of our sports. Who are these people? And the reality of it is, there will be a textbook that has Barry Bonds' home run record in it. There is going to be Baseball Reference, I'm staring at right now, that will have Barry Bonds' home run record in it. You don't need to build a shrine to Barry Bonds if he's a terrible fucking human just because he hit a bunch of home runs. You don't need to build a shrine or, have a whole bunch of plaques commemorating Roger Clemens if he tried to solicit sex from a minor. Those are bad people. And by leaving the morality question of who and why we're putting people in the MLB Hall of Fame into the hands of people who cover the sport and not making those types of decisions for them by having an appropriate ethics body weighing who gets their name on the ballot in the first place, doing a massive disservice to our society. In large part because the voters suck. And if they had integrity, this wouldn't be so much of a question, but also the fact that we're going to have to bring to light a lot of traumatic experiences for a lot of people. No woman deserves to have abuse weighed as a pro or con, or as a con against a pro for how many fucking strikeouts Roger Clemens got. Yeah, he beat someone up, but no. And even if someone does the right thing and doesn't vote for Roger Clemens for that or Barry Bonds for that, that's going to have to be brought up as the reason why. Or unless it's steroids, which again, who gives a shit? And it's astonishing that these things aren't vetted, because it wouldn't take much work. It's just that they don't care. That's really all it is. Because if we can have, rules about how many years you served in baseball and, to make the ballot, and how many percentage points of votes you need to get to remain on the ballot, we can do all of this tabulation and analysis, then why can't you have a small group of people be like, yeah, I mean, this guy had like a lot of DRS, but man, was he a piece of shit, and he should not be eligible. It's just because they don't give a shit. And it's, again, this point that always comes back around when we talk about sports, which is, if you're a fan, it shouldn't be on you to have to vet these fucking people. And it shouldn't be on you to have to weigh how happy you are about a team's win if the wrong guys are on the mound. Because the sport should remove that issue from the conversation by handling it. And they don't. There's bans now for domestic violence. Are they strict enough? Do they mean enough? The bans for steroids are a fuck ton worse. And in the grand scheme of life, steroids seems a lot less worse than beating somebody up in an abusive fashion, especially. So, I've come around on it because I really wasn't informed about it at all, for being honest. It's just never something I would have thought to look into. When Corin and I have these conversations of, we had a whole talk about Omar Vizquel, about whether or not he should make the Hall of Fame, like 2 days before the fucking domestic abuse story broke. And not once did we think to look into his background, because you don't think, like, we all know baseball and football, which is having its own drama right now, with a Seattle Seahawks player that I hope gets kicked the fuck out of the league. But you don't assume, or you know that the leagues aren't vetting these people as they should. But you also, at least me, I don't actively think about it right away, because it feels like something that should be handled by the league, even though I know they're not handling it. And, I try to, make a case for Omar because I wanted to respect the defensive element of baseball. And we did 40 fucking minutes on Omar Vizquel. And all that shit goes out the window the second that story breaks. Rightfully so. And the thing is, if that story has merit, Omar should be off the ballot next year. And the Bonds and Clemens shit, those are old stories. Again, granted, I didn't know them because, Bonds and Clemens were the tail end of their careers, was the beginning of, my conscious fandom. When you start learning a few more names in baseball than just the handful. For me, it was, the core four guys were, basically the only fucking ball players I knew the names of, and everyone else was just a jersey. So I don't have full recollections of their prime time of being in the news, just because I was too young, so I wouldn't have known the stories. But I mean, now that I do, and now that we have a better sense of what matters when talking about sports, take this out of their hands, because it's disappointing. It's disappointing that this has to be a conversation, because it doesn't have to be a conversation if MLB handled it. And we're going to have these same conversations when it comes to football, I'm sure. When it comes to hockey, every sport has these issues. The leagues have to get better about handling them. Selfishly, too, it is bad press for baseball to have this be a conversation every time the Hall of Fame comes around. And there's a cold-blooded, cruel position on it. But the fact that the cold-blooded, cruel position is still the morally correct one shows that they should really fucking do it. Because the only reason they're not is that they suck and they don't give a shit. Curt Schilling is a whole different bag of worms. Look, man, if you listen to this and you voted for Curt Schilling, fuck you. Fuck you. And if you're one of the handful of people that wanted to try to take your vote back for Curt Schilling after the insurrection, fuck you especially. He's been telling you who he is for years. It's not a matter of like or dislike of the personal politics of a man. Mariano Rivera is a Trump supporter. He got 100% of the ballot 2 years ago. This guy's a nut job. He's a fucking nut job. That's why he's not going. Why people don't like him. That's why people don't want him in the Hall of fucking Fame. He's a fucking lunatic. That's a guy you want to be able to spend money, make money, uh, uh, selling himself as an MLB Hall of Famer for the rest of his fucking life. Gets to have that tag, gets to have that plaque. Fuck that guy. Fuck him. There is a colossal difference between voting R and supporting literal insurrection. Fuck that guy. It's different. I'm hoping between now and next year's ballot, maybe there's a shakeup. I know there's been a bunch of other guys whose names have been mentioned as having domestic abuse claims made against them that are still on the ballot, and maybe if we have an optimistic outlook on the way that these types of matters will be handled by sports as a whole and by baseball in particular going forward, maybe we'll see a different looking ballot next year that has a lot fewer names on it. I don't know. The only guy I have to say anything about in terms of baseball acumen, Scott Rowland. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I hope he is. Soon. He deserves it for sure. But we've got to be better, man. I mean, that's all there is to it. We've got to be better. I mean, how are you going to vote? How are you going to vote for Barry Bonds and then tell somebody, yeah, he hit a bunch of women, but man, look at those home runs. Who are you? Why? Fuck you. That's who you want to be? It's not who you should want to be. So real quick, I know it's kind of a down note. I want to have a little bit of fun at the end of this and look forward to next year's ballot, which I'm looking at right now. It actually has a fuck ton of names on it. Brand new names. So real quick, just kind of bobbing and weaving, hopping and dancing through them, just for shits and giggles here at the end of the show. Man, this is a lot of names. All right, let's take it one by one. So Ryan Vogelsong will be on the ballot next year. He finished his career with 1.2 WAR. Played for 12 years, and he had 1.2 career WAR. I was wondering why I didn't know who he was, and now I know. Oh, man. How? What? Wait, 0.6 WAR? What's the real story? Man, what the fuck? Oh, 0.62. 0.6 pitching WAR, I see. Oh my god. This is wow. All right, so he's not making the Hall of Fame. Javier Lopez and his 8 WAR. 14 years mostly with the San Francisco Giants. He ain't making the Hall of Fame. Jeff Francoeur with his 6.8 WAR and his 12-year career mostly with the Atlanta Braves. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Colby Lewis and his 9 WAR in 11 years, mostly with the Texas Rangers. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Billy Butler, 11.9 WAR in 10 years, mostly with the Kansas City Royals. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Oh my God, I'm just going to power through. Here's all. Oh, actually, that's an interesting name. All right, then I'm going to stop powering through. I'm not going to power through. I changed my mind. Matt Thornton, 13.4 WAR in 13 years, mostly with the Chicago White Sox. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Omar Infante, with his career 16.9 WAR, 15 years, mostly with the Detroit Tigers. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Here's an interesting name. Ryan Howard, who only had 14.7 WAR, which is news to me. Spent his entire career with the Philadelphia Phillies. There's no way he makes the Hall of Fame with 14 WAR. It just doesn't happen. Apparently he had 22.8 OWAR, but negative 17 DWAR, which is just impressive. But here's a guy, Rookie of the Year in his first full year in the bigs, MVP his second full year in the bigs, fifth place MVP finish, second place, third place, and then 2 top 10 finishes. 3-time All-Star, Silver Slugger, World Series winner, NLCS MVP. What a weird resume for a guy with 14 WAR. So he's not going to make the Hall of Fame, but I was not expecting him to be quite so low on this list. Anyway, there's actually a bunch of interesting names. All right, I'll power through a couple and then get to some more interesting ones. Angel Pagan, 18 WAR, 11 years, mostly with the Giants, won't make the Hall of Fame. Kyle Lose? I always forget how to pronounce this guy's name. 18.9 WAR in 16 years, mostly with the Twins. He will not make the Hall of Fame. AJ Pajinski, everyone's least favorite player. Dude fucking sucks. He's a dick. Played 19 years. He's an asshole. Spent most of it with Chicago. Fuck this guy. He ain't making the Hall of Fame. 23.8 WAR. It doesn't matter. Jonathan Papelbon, who will be an interesting conversation for the reliever category because it has been more of a thing in the since like the Trevor Hoffman ballot where he made it to consider closers. So Jonathan Papelbon only 23.3 WAR, but he has 368 saves, which is a lot. Spent most of his career with Boston, has a World Series win, 6-time All-Star. So low on the list of WAR getters, but a sneaky, probably going to get a decent chunk of votes kind of guy. Juan Uribe, 22.7 WAR in 16 seasons, mostly with the Dodgers. He will not make the Hall of Fame. And now another very interesting name, Tim Lincecum, which blows my mind he's already in the Hall of Fame ballot because it feels like he just fucking retired and also tried to make a comeback. So 19.6 WAR, 2-time Cy Young, 4-time All-Star, 3-time World Series winner, won his Cy Youngs in back-to-back seasons, then followed them up with a 10th place Cy Young finish and a 6th place Cy Young finish. At one point or another, he led the league in win-loss percent, games started, complete game shutouts, earned runs allowed, strikeouts 3 times, wild pitches 3 times, ERA plus once, FIP twice, hits per 9 once, not in the way you'd want it, by the way. Actually, no, in the way you'd want it. It was low. That's good. Home runs per 9 once, and strikeouts per 9 3 times. Prime Tim Lincecum from 2008 to like 2010 was unfucking touchable. And I don't think he's likely to make the Hall of Fame because while his peak was like crazy, it didn't like last as long as the Sandy Koufax peak where it's like, yeah, he doesn't have a lot of WAR, but his peak was stupid and it lasted, like a good solid 7 years, whereas Tim's does not. So it'll be an interesting conversation. It'll be fun to hear Tim Lincecum's name in baseball talk again because he's always seemed like a really cool dude. I hope, fingers crossed, I guess. And has a really fun peak with what was a very good Giants team. But, yeah, we'll see. All right, powering through a few more. Scott Kazmir, 22.6 WAR over the course of 12 years, mostly with the Rays. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Michael Bourne, 22.8 WAR, 11 years, mostly with Houston. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Joe Nathan, 26.7 WAR, over 16 years, mostly with Minnesota. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Prince Fielder, a favorite. 23.8 WAR, 12 seasons, mostly with Milwaukee. He is not likely to make the Hall of Fame. But it'll be, again, also fun hearing Prince Fielder's name thrown around a little bit in baseball talk because who doesn't fucking love Prince Fielder? It's such a fun little peak. Not little. Had a fun peak. I don't want to be like weirdly disrespectful. He's a super fun player. Anyway, Marlon Byrd, 25.8 WAR, 15 years, mostly with the Phillies, will not make the Hall of Fame. Justin Morneau, I believe, 27 WAR, 14 years mostly with Minnesota. He will not make the Hall of Fame. Coco Crisp, 28.9 WAR, over 15 years mostly with Oakland. He will not make the Hall of Fame, but it would also be fun hearing the Coco Crisp name thrown about. One of the all-time 80 great baseball names. And if you can believe it, folks, all these names I've read so far are still first ballot dudes. We are almost done, I promise. Jake Peavy, 39.2 WAR over the course of 15 years, mostly with the San Diego Padres. He is not likely to make the Hall of Fame, but he is definitely a very cool resume. Cy Young, Triple Crown, 3-time All-Star, 2-time World Series winner, Gold Glove, 2-time ERA title. But unfortunately, there's just a lot of years here, so it's greatly diminished his overall, I guess, performance value. It feels weird, like, judging players like this, but this is how it is. So, not likely to make the Hall of Fame, but it'll be nice to have him mentioned again. I imagine he'll be like some of the names we read earlier on, where he'll get like a couple percentage points of the ballots just for people who remember him and like him, and that'll probably be it. Carl Crawford, 39.1 WAR over the course of 15 years, mostly for the Tampa Bay Rays. Also not likely to make the Hall of Fame. Also was a very fun player, so it'll be fun hearing the Carl Crawford name again. That's just fun to say. Carl Crawford. Jimmy Rollins. 47.6 WAR. He played for 17 years, mostly with the Phillies. MVP, 3-time All-Star, 08 World Series, 4 Gold Gloves, Silver Slugger, led the league in plate appearances 3 times, at-bats 4 times, runs once, triples 4 times, and stolen bases once. He had finished 3rd in MVP voting, and then had 2 top 10 MVP finishes, with one of those being a win. Super fun player. Not likely to make the Hall of Fame because of just how high that threshold tends to be, but man, it'll be fun talking about Jimmy Rollins again going forward. Oh, man. Childhood flashbacks. Mark Teixeira, as we're approaching the end of this list. 50.6 WAR, 14 years, mostly with the Yankees. 3-time All-Star, World Series winner, 5-time Gold Glove, 3-time Silver Slugger. Finished 2nd place in MVP voting one year. It was his high water mark in 2009. He led the league in runs once, home runs once, RBIs once, total bases twice, and sack flies once. Watch out. Super nice guy from what I hear him give interviews. It'll also be fun to reminisce on his Yankees years. I do not think he'll make the Hall of Fame as a cursory first take, but it'll certainly be fun. I think he's one of those guys that might float on the ballot for a couple of years at low percentages. Yeah, but I don't think he has any staying power. So leaving that to the side. 2 guys left, and they're the big ones. They've been floating around on Twitter a lot over these past few days. First up, Big Papi, David Ortiz, 55.3 WAR over the course of 20 seasons. Actually, not all of them. I always forget he played for Minnesota for 6 years. Most of it was with Boston, 14, 6 seasons with Minnesota. 10-time All-Star, 3-time World Series winner, World Series MVP, 7-time Silver Slugger, and the ALCS MVP from one of his playoff runs. He led the league in doubles once his final year in the league. Big Papi. Home runs once, RBIs 3 times, walks twice, on base percentage once, slugging percent once, OPS once, and intentional walks 3 times. Now, his WAR is a little bit low at 55.3. However, he did most of his career as a DH and therefore accrued no DWAR and got a negative WAR adjustment in all likelihood as a result of that. So, if we are, again, removing ourselves from the PED conversation and tabling that for a later discussion, talking strictly baseball, it is very likely we'll see David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame. It's tough to know what that's going to look like, based on just how the ballot shakes out next year. This is going to bring about a whole new round of conversation into the steroids use in baseball, but fucking, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But in all likelihood, without PEDs, David Ortiz in the Hall of Fame. Which brings us to the last guy, Alex Rodriguez. 117.5 WAR. 3-time MVP, 14-time All-Star, 09 World Series winner, 2-time Golden Glove, 10-time Silver Slugger, a batting title, and 3 times Major League Player of the Year. At a second place MVP finish in 96, third place in 2000, sixth place in 01, second place in 02, won it, didn't win it, won it, didn't win it, won it, and then had 3 top 15 finishes immediately after that. He led the league in plate appearances once, at-bats once, runs 5 times, hits once, doubles once, home runs 5 times, RBIs twice, batting average once, slugging percent 3 times, OPS twice, OPS plus twice, total bases 4 times. Over his career, he managed to amass 115.30 WAR and 10.4 DWAR, which in all likelihood would have been higher had he not switched to third base when joining the Yankees. He played for 22 fucking seasons, most of which with the Yankees, with significant time in Seattle and a minor stint in Texas. He played from 94 to 2013, was suspended for PED use the entirety of 2014, and then played out 2 more seasons with the Yankees, 2015 and 2016, before kind of being forced out a little bit. He is a controversial player when it comes to these types of talks. He failed a PED test publicly in a very controversial fashion, which was going to make a much bigger sticking point out of steroids talks than Clemens and Bonds had, because there was not the full scandal embroiling them the way it embroiled A-Rod. However, this also means we're going to get another consecutive 10 years of someone on the ballot with over 100 WAR having a conversation about whether or not we let them in due to steroids use. So this conversation is not likely to go away anytime in the near future. David Ortiz to a lighter degree, because he never failed a public test, I believe, but A-Rod, who had a legal battle and a whole fucking mess of a conclusion to his career, will certainly have this be a big old discussion for way longer than anybody cares to have it. So, that's what we have to look forward to on the ballot for 2022. It's a huge ballot. It's going to be very interesting to see how it's all handled. But all things in time. So I ended up going for a while here. So you're fucking welcome, you goddamn bitch. Whoever it is listening to this, but I love you. So, we will, because there's not going to be any induction ceremony this year. We'll probably won't talk about the Hall of Fame until the voting cycle renews at the tail end of this year, December of this year into January of next year. And we'll see what direction the MLB decides to take with it. Hopefully there is a more proactive measures around how to approach the ballot next year rather than reactive, but we're already at the reactive point, so hopefully MLB reacts fucking accordingly. But we'll see. Check out next week, or fucking Monday's episode, as we do recaps of the championship games and look forward towards the Super Bowl. Maybe talk a little bit of hockey. We'll see. We'll see what's going on. I don't know everything. I don't know anything. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. If you want to hit us up via email, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Monday, y'all.